Hey Reddit. I never thought I'd be one of those guys pouring my life out on the internet, but here I am. I've been holding this in for months now, and I feel like I'm gonna explode if I don't get it out. Maybe it'll help someone. Maybe it'll just help me. Either way, I need to tell this story. I'm a 38-year-old guy, married to my wife Lisa, 35F, for almost 12 years. We met back in college. I was the quiet, steady guy studying computer science, and she was the bold, wild, artsy type who always lit up a room. I was drawn to her energy like a moth to a flame. She told me I made her feel safe, grounded. I thought that was a good thing. Looking back, maybe that should have been the first red flag. Turns out being someone's safe space just means they think you'll stick around no matter what they do. We got married a year after graduation. While my career in software development took off and I settled into a stable job, Lisa bounced from one passion project to another. First photography, then a brief flirtation with yoga teaching, then trying to launch her own online boutique, which failed after 6 months and thousands of dollars sunk. I never complained. I backed her, always. She was my wife, my partner. I thought that's what love looked like, holding her up even when she couldn't stand on her own. We have a 7-year-old daughter, Chloe, who means the world to me. I've always tried to be present for both of them, packing lunches, bedtime stories, helping with homework, you name it. We weren't rich, but I earned well. Paid all the bills, kept us comfortable, took us on trips every year. I wasn't perfect, but I gave everything I had to that family. Then, sometime around last October, things started to shift. Lisa started hitting the gym obsessively. Like, every single day. She said it helped her clear her mind. She also started getting packages almost weekly, new clothes, new lingerie, makeup brands I'd never heard her mention before. She claimed it was part of working on herself, but she didn't seem any happier around me. If anything, she got colder. Distant. She'd look at her phone and smile, then quickly lock the screen when I came near. At first, I told myself it was in my head. Maybe she was just going through something. I didn't want to be the jealous or suspicious husband, so I ignored the alarms in my head and focused on being supportive. That's what a good husband does, right? Then came the trip to Miami. She said it was a girls' weekend with her old college friends. No big deal. I stayed home with Chloe. Lisa posted photos all over Instagram, fancy restaurants, rooftop bars, her wearing clothes I'd never seen before. One of the pictures had a shadowy figure behind her that looked suspiciously masculine. When I asked her who took the photo, she laughed and said, "Oh come on, babe, don't be creepy." It was some waiter. I didn't press. I should have, but I didn't. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe that the woman I married wouldn't lie straight to my face. But the doubt was there now, gnawing at me like a splinter under the skin. The real crack came not from Lisa, but from Chloe. One afternoon, after I picked her up from school, she said something innocent, but it hit me like a truck. "Daddy, why does mommy always smile at the man with tattoos when she drops me off? He always hugs her." I froze. "What man, sweetheart?" "The one with the drawings on his arms. Mommy says he's her friend." That night, I barely slept. Something in my gut told me this wasn't just some random gym buddy or barista. This wasn't nothing. It was the beginning of everything unraveling. The next morning, I dropped Chloe off myself. I pretended it was just for a change of pace, but really, I wanted to see this man with tattoos. And I did. Standing outside the school, leaning against a matte black Harley, was a guy who looked straight out of a bad romance novel. Muscles, ink sleeves, sunglasses. He was laughing with someone on the phone, and I didn't have to guess who it was. My stomach turned. When I asked Lisa about him later that evening, I kept it casual, at least I tried. "Hey, Chloe mentioned a guy with tattoos you talked to at drop-off. You know him?" Her eyes didn't even flinch. "Oh, that's Justine. He's a tattoo artist. One of the moms introduced us." His harmless. Chill, babe. I stared at her for a beat too long, and she noticed. She smirked. Don't tell me you're jealous of Dean. I'm just asking. God, you've been acting so weird lately, she snapped. You never used to be so controlling. Are you that bored with your life you need to invent problems? That was her thing, deflect, flip the script, make me feel like I was the problem. And for a while, it worked. I backed off. But my gut wasn't quiet anymore. A few days later, I checked our phone bill. Something I'd never done before in 12 years of marriage. There it was, Dean's number, dozens of texts and hours of calls, mostly late at night or during work hours. My hands were shaking. I confronted her that night. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just showed her the call log and asked, "What's going on?" She went cold. You went through my phone records, she snapped. Wow. Paranoid much? I didn't even get a denial. Just more deflection. More gaslighting. More of that smug look like she was in control and I was the insecure one. I've been talking to him because he listens, she finally said. Unlike you. You're always tired or working or stressed. Dean makes me feel seen. That was the moment I felt my heart break in real time. So I asked, "Are you sleeping with him?" She shrugged. Why does it even matter anymore? You've checked out of this marriage. You're just going through the motions. She never said yes. She didn't have to. She packed a bag the next day and left with some vague excuse about needing space. She said she was staying at a friend's, but I already knew the truth. And I wasn't going to sit back and let her spin more lies. That night, I started digging. I needed proof. Not for closure, for custody. Because what I uncovered next was more than just an affair. It was a setup. And they thought I was too weak, too passive to fight back. They were wrong. I didn't sleep much that week. My mind was in overdrive, fueled by betrayal, disbelief, and something else I hadn't felt in a long time, anger. The kind that sits deep in your bones, quiet and cold. The kind that doesn't scream. It waits. Lisa kept up the charade that she was figuring things out while staying at her friend's place. Chloe asked about her constantly, and I had to fake a calm I didn't feel. Every night, I put our daughter to bed, then buried myself in research. Not just on Lisa and her new friend Dean, but on our finances, our legal standing, everything. I wanted leverage. I needed it. And then, one night, I got it. I don't know why I hadn't checked the shared Google account sooner. Maybe because I never thought she'd be that sloppy. But there it was, an autosync folder from her phone. Photos, videos, documents. Most of it was normal stuff, screenshots of Pinterest tattoos, selfies, photos of Chloe. Then I found the videos. One was filmed in what looked like a hotel room. Lisa, half naked, sitting on Dean's lap, laughing. They clinked wine glasses and toasted. To freedom, she said. And to the plan. Dean replied, soon as the paperwork's done, we're set. He's too dumb to see it coming. I paused the video and sat there for a while, completely numb. The plan. That explained everything, the sudden coldness, the self-care, obsession, the trip to Miami, even the flirty school drop-offs. This wasn't just an affair. They were setting me up. Trying to paint a picture of a disconnected husband so she could win sympathy, custody, maybe even alimony. Lisa didn't just cheat on me, she tried to erase me. I copied everything. Photos, videos, texts. I backed it up in 3 places and sent it to a lawyer friend from college. I didn't say much. Just, tell me how much damage this is worth. He called me the next morning, and the first thing he said was, you have a solid case for divorce. And if you play this right, custody too. That was the first time in weeks I felt anything close to hope. But I wasn't done. I wanted to know how deep this went. I started tracking every transaction from our shared accounts. Turns out, Lisa had been siphoning money for months into a separate account. Small amounts, just under my radar. But over time, it added up, almost $18,000 gone. I had screenshots, timestamps, even IP locations. It all traced back to Dean's tattoo studio. That was the last straw. They weren't just unfaithful, they were con artists. And they were trying to screw me over in every possible way. So I made a decision. I wasn't just going to divorce her. I was going to sue them both. For emotional distress. For financial fraud. For everything I could possibly get them on. I contacted a private investigator, handed over all my files, and said, "Find me more. I want their entire plan exposed." Because I wasn't the fool they thought I was. Not anymore. Once I made the decision to sue, something in me changed. I stopped walking on eggshells. I stopped trying to figure out why she did what she did. It didn't matter. There's no closure with people like Lisa, only consequences. And if she thought I was going to sit back and be the sad, heartbroken guy who just let her walk away with my kid and my money, she picked the wrong man. I met with a divorce attorney, Amy, a hard-as-nails professional who came recommended by a buddy from work. After I laid everything out, she leaned back in her chair, gave me a slow nod, and said, "This is more than infidelity. This is strategic deception. You're looking at grounds for fault-based divorce, potential fraud, and maybe even civil damages depending on how far it goes." We talked custody. Chloe was my everything, and I refused to let her become some pawn in Lisa's little game. Amy assured me that judges don't take kindly to parental alienation or documented dishonesty, especially when there's video proof. That gave me a glimmer of peace. The next few weeks were all about control, regaining it, piece by piece. I stopped contacting Lisa directly. Everything went through email, and every email was polite, professional, and emotionless. She responded like nothing was wrong. "Thanks for handling drop-off. I'll get Chloe this weekend." Like we were still some picture-perfect co-parenting team. Behind the scenes, my PI was working overtime. Dean, the tattooed Casanova, wasn't just her affair partner. He had a reputation. Multiple exes, a couple of restraining orders, and a recent eviction. Nice touch. His name wasn't even on the lease of his new place. Lisa was paying it. With my money. And then there was the kicker. Dean had a small business loan application submitted under his name, with Lisa listed as the co-signer. She'd used our joint assets as leverage. That alone was enough for Amy to say, "We need to freeze your accounts. Now." And we did. Every shared card, account, savings bond, locked. I transferred my paycheck into a new private account. I opened a separate one for Chloe's needs, school, clothes, food, and made sure every transaction was traceable. That night, Lisa called. I didn't answer. She called again. Then the text started. "What's going on with the bank? I couldn't pay rent. Chloe needs lunch money, you heartless piece of SHT. Asterisk." I didn't respond. Every word was saved. Every message timestamped. Let her spiral. Let her show her true self. Because the legal paperwork was nearly ready, and when she got served, she'd realize she wasn't just losing a marriage, she was walking straight into a courtroom where I held every card. And the worst part for her? She didn't even see it coming. The morning the divorce papers were served was quieter than I expected. No fireworks. No screaming phone calls. Just an unreadable silence that lasted all of 6 hours before the hurricane hit. Lisa showed up at my house around 3 p.m. No warning. No call. Just the slam of a car door and the click of her heels on the driveway. I watched her from the kitchen window, took a deep breath, and opened the door before she could start pounding on it. "What the hell is this?" she barked, shoving the envelope into my chest. Her mascara was smudged. Probably cried in the car, but she'd never admit it. "You've been served," I said calmly. "Everything's in there. Read it." You're suing me? Suing me? And Dean? What kind of psycho revenge fantasy is this? No fantasy. Just consequences. She stepped back, stunned for a second. Her lip curled. You're pathetic. You think this is going to make you look like a better parent? A man? It's just going to make the judge see how bitter and controlling you are. That would have worked on me once. Not anymore. I'm doing what I have to do to protect myself. And Chloe. When I said our daughter's name, her entire demeanor shifted. She turned it on like a switch, tears, trembling lip, the full performance. Don't you dare use her against me. I've always been a good mother. You're just mad because you couldn't keep me happy. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, no, Lisa. I'm mad because you lied, cheated, stole from our accounts, and involved our child in your mess. This has nothing to do with keeping you happy. This is about you being reckless and selfish and thinking there'd be no fallout. She stared at me for a long moment, then said something that stuck with me. You think you're the hero in this story. But you're not. You're just the guy who got left behind. I didn't flinch. We'll let the judge decide who's what. She stormed off, but not before hurling one last dagger. You'll regret this. Dean's already talking to a lawyer. We'll bury you. I didn't respond. Just closed the door and locked it. That night, I sat down with Chloe and told her something very simple. Mommy and Daddy are going to live in different houses, but we both love you very much. And we're going to make sure you're safe and happy. She asked if it was because of Mommy's friend with the tattoos. I didn't have to answer. She already knew. That night, I watched Lisa's Instagram vanish. Deleted. Probably on her lawyer's advice. Dean's, too. I checked out of curiosity. His account was gone, along with every trace of the life they'd built on lies. But I had everything backed up. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was defense. And as the court date approached, I had one more surprise in store. The plan they thought was airtight. It was full of holes. A week before the preliminary court hearing, my attorney Amy filed an official complaint in civil court, naming both Lisa and Dean. It wasn't just about the divorce or custody anymore. We were suing them. Lisa, for fraudulent activity, transferring joint funds into a private account, co-signing a business loan without my knowledge, and misusing marital assets for her affair. Dean, for civil conspiracy, emotional distress, and knowingly benefiting from stolen funds. Once I caught onto their plan, the secret account, the business loan, and the laughable attempt to paint me as an absentee husband, I decided not to just end the marriage. I was going to make it clear to both of them that betrayal isn't free. There's always a price. Their reaction was exactly what you'd expect from two arrogant amateurs who thought they were running the show. Dean posted a smug video online, ranting about toxic exes who can't let go, and jealous haters who want to bring a real man down. His studio had been getting traction thanks to Lisa's promotion and our money. That little empire? It was about to crumble. Because my PI uncovered that Dean had filed false income statements to qualify for that loan. Combine that with Lisa using marital assets to help him, the bank wanted a word too. Meanwhile, Lisa was unraveling behind closed doors. She'd gone from smug to desperate. I heard from mutual friends that she'd been crying at brunch, claiming I was ruining her life and that I'd blindsided her. No mention, of course, of how she blindsided me, our daughter, or the life we'd built. Then came mediation day. We sat across from each other, with our lawyers in between. She didn't look at me once. Her hands trembled as her attorney whispered into her ear. I kept my gaze steady, letting her feel it. Letting her know I wasn't the doormat she'd always assumed I'd be. Amy laid out our position. We wanted full custody of Chloe, citing the instability Lisa's behavior introduced. We submitted the synced video footage, call logs, text messages, financial transfers, and statements from the PI. When the mediator asked Lisa's attorney for a response, he requested a break, twice. Dean didn't even bother showing up. His lawyer sent a weak statement saying Dean had no knowledge of the marital funds and acted in good faith. Bull. And we could prove it. After the session, Lisa followed me to the parking lot. She had that look again, half venom, half desperation. You want to destroy me, don't you? I stopped walking. No. You did that on your own. I'm just making sure I don't go down with you. She didn't have a comeback. Just stood there, jaw clenched, watching the life she'd gambled fall apart in slow motion. And me? For the first time in months, I drove home without the weight of confusion or heartbreak on my shoulders. Just quiet determination. Because the fight wasn't over yet. But I was winning. While Lisa kept scrambling, trying to spin the narrative like she was some innocent woman caught in a bitter man's revenge tale, I focused on the one thing that really mattered, Chloe. My lawyer told me this would be the hardest part. Family court judges, especially in our state, tend to favor joint custody unless there's clear instability or danger. But the documentation I had painted a pretty damning picture, not of a dangerous parent, necessarily, but of someone who had made self-serving, impulsive decisions that endangered the financial and emotional security of her child. The court needed to see that. Lisa, on the other hand, kept doing me favors without even knowing it. During her mom time, she posted selfies with friends at bars, sometimes even with Dean lurking in the background. In one particularly brilliant move, she uploaded a story where Dean was jokingly pretending to give Chloe a tattoo with a marker. The audio? Him saying, "Got her teacher young, right?" I had it downloaded within 5 minutes. At the next custody hearing, Amy presented all of it. The judge barely batted an eye when she looked through our stack of screenshots, video clips, bank records, and the PI's final report. Dean had a record of aggressive behavior, unpaid debts, and a restraining order filed 2 years ago by an ex-girlfriend. Lisa tried to explain it all away, said the money transfers were for emergencies, that Dean was misunderstood, that the tattoo story was just a joke. She teared up, played the single mother in crisis card. The judge was polite, but unimpressed. Then came the bombshell. The PI had uncovered that Dean used Lisa's boutique license, remember that failed business, to apply for state-funded small business assistance. That alone was enough to raise suspicions of fraud. Amy dropped that into the case file like a dagger. When we left the courtroom, Lisa looked like she had seen a ghost. Her lawyer pulled her aside before she could say anything to me. I caught the words, "criminal liability," in his whisper. She went pale. The judge issued a temporary order, I'd have full custody until the next hearing. Lisa could have supervised visits, but only if Dean wasn't present. She was also ordered to complete a financial disclosure report under penalty of perjury. That evening, Chloe and I got ice cream to celebrate, not because we were happy Lisa was losing, but because it felt like our home was finally calm again. For the first time in months, Chloe slept through the night without waking up asking where mommy was. I watched her drift off in her bed, her stuffed fox curled under her arm, and I made myself a promise. No matter how long this dragged out, no matter how ugly Lisa tried to make it, I was going to protect my daughter. Not just from Lisa and Dean, but from the toxic storm they had invited into our lives. Because Lisa had gambled away her family for a fling. And now she was losing. After the custody hearing, it was like Lisa realized she was actually bleeding out. All that bravado? Gone. She started slipping, publicly, and fast. 3 days later, a mutual friend sent me a video from Facebook. Lisa was drunk at some pop-up bar event, crying on a mic during karaoke night. She butchered Someone Like You by Adele, then went on a slurred rant about men who trap women and lying courts. The worst part. Dean was behind her, laughing and filming the whole thing. You could even hear him say, "Post that, baby, let em see the real you." I didn't even have to touch it. That video went semi-viral in our local circle. 2 PTA moms texted me the next morning asking if I was okay. But Lisa? She doubled down. She started emailing me long-winded rants, accusing me of stealing her child, of weaponizing the legal system, of using money to silence the truth. I forwarded every single message to Amy. She told me, keep stacking the firewood. When the court's ready to light the match, they'll see who was pouring gasoline. Then came the text that made my blood freeze. Dean thinks we can take Chloe and move to Florida. New start. Clean break. Thoughts? Thoughts? I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I just sent it to my attorney. That text was a golden ticket, a documented intent to violate custody orders and take our daughter across state lines without permission. Kidnapping, essentially. Lisa had no idea she'd just nuked whatever credibility she had left. At the next emergency custody hearing, Amy dropped the text into the judge's hands before the session even started. The judge read it, didn't even blink, and tightened the restrictions. Lisa's visits were to now be court-supervised only, at a monitored center, no exceptions. Dean was banned from any contact with Chloe altogether. Lisa broke down crying in court. And for a brief moment, even I felt a twinge of sympathy. But then I remembered the lies, the smug smirks, the whispered, "He's too dumb to see it coming." The manipulation. The cheating. The plan to erase me from my own child's life. No. She made her choices. That evening, Lisa's lawyer called me directly, something that rarely happens unless the storm is bad. He said, "She's panicking. She wants to settle." I stayed quiet. "She's willing to relinquish primary custody if you agree not to pursue criminal charges or sue her for financial damages." Amy's voice echoed in my mind, "This is the deal. This is the win. Now lock it in." So I agreed. But I added one clause: Dean was to be removed from Chloe's life completely. No contact. No visits. Not even a mention. Lisa signed within 24 hours. It was done. I'd won custody. Avoided court battles that could have dragged out for years. And now I was free from her, and free to rebuild something that looked like peace. But I wasn't done yet. Because the civil suit against Dean, that was still coming. And unlike Lisa, he didn't have a child to protect him. With custody secured and Lisa legally sidelined, the weight I'd been carrying for months started to lift. Chloe and I found a rhythm. Quiet mornings, silly breakfast dances, bedtime stories without tension hanging in the air. For the first time in a long time, my house felt like a home again. But there was still one chapter left to close. Dean. The man who swaggered into my life like he owned it. Who thought he could not only sleep with my wife, but replace me in my daughter's life. The same guy who helped Lisa siphon money out of our accounts, co-signed fraudulent loans, and joked online about real men taking what they want. He wanted to play dirty. Good. I was playing legal. My civil suit against him was already in motion. Fraud, civil conspiracy, emotional distress, financial damages, you name it, we filed it. My pie's full report was a minefield of evidence: texts between Lisa and Dean planning financial moves, photos of Dean using my car while Lisa was away, yep, she'd loaned it to him without telling me, and audio clips from a bugged conversation they had at the tattoo shop's back room. You read that right, I had legal audio. Turns out, Dean liked to brag. One clip had him saying, "He's got no fight in him. We'll bleed him dry, split the settlement, and bounce to Florida." Amy nearly smiled when she heard that. Almost. We subpoenaed the boutique loan files. Turns out, Dean forged part of Lisa's application to exaggerate their income. That turned a sketchy setup into a federal offense, bank fraud. And then, the bomb dropped. One of Dean's former business partners, Reed, victim, came forward when he saw the court filing online. Said Dean had done something similar a few years back, got close with a married woman, manipulated her into backing his business, and vanished with a chunk of her savings when it all collapsed. Never charged. Settled quietly. This time, I wasn't settling. I wanted a judgment on public record. I wanted his name on every local news alert about fraud. And most importantly, I wanted my daughter to grow up knowing her father didn't just let people walk all over him. Dean, of course, tried to play the same old game. Posted cryptic Instagram captions. Called the whole thing a smear campaign by a bitter ex-husband with a small asterisk and a big lawyer bill. Classy. But when his court date approached and we filed discovery motions, he panicked. His lawyer reached out. Offered a settlement. I declined. I didn't want his money. I wanted the court to say it out loud: this man was a liar, a con, and a thief. And I wanted it on paper. So that's where I was heading next. One last courtroom. One last face-to-face. The guy who thought I was weak. He was about to see what happens when the nice guy stops turning the other cheek. The day of the hearing, I walked into the courthouse feeling calm. Not victorious, not vengeful, just clear-headed. I'd spent months being lied to, manipulated, and underestimated. Now I had the truth, the law, and an ironclad case. Dean showed up late. Of course. Wearing a cheap suit that looked like it hadn't seen an iron, or soap, in weeks. He had that same smug expression, like this was all just a minor inconvenience. Like he was still in control. He wasn't. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and zero tolerance for BS, didn't waste time. Mr. Walker, you're being sued for financial fraud, conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Do you understand the charges brought against you? Dean cleared his throat, gave a cocky shrug, and said, "Yeah, Your Honor, but it's not that serious." Bad move. Amy stood up, presented the full binder of evidence: wire transfers, text logs, surveillance photos, the business loan application with Lisa's forged income details, even the voice recordings where he and Lisa laughed about draining me dry. The judge didn't blink. She just flipped through the documents, page after page, letting the silence drag out like a slow strangulation. Then she asked Dean one question. Did you knowingly benefit from funds misappropriated from Mr. Clark's marital account? Dean hesitated. His lawyer whispered something. He finally said, I didn't know where the money came from. Lisa told me it was hers. Amy cut in, Your Honor, may I play the audio clip where Mr. Walker says, quote, it's his money, but what's he gonna do about it? Dean's lawyer objected. Overruled. The clip played. The judge took off her glasses. Mr. Walker, that sounds very much like you knew where the funds came from. Dean opened his mouth, but nothing came out. No smirk. No swagger. Just silence. We'd broken him. The ruling wasn't instant. But a week later, we got the verdict. Dean was found liable for over $42,000 in damages. He was ordered to pay restitution, and a formal judgment was entered under his name. His studio's business license was flagged for investigation, and the financial institution involved in the fraudulent loan was notified. And the best part? The judge wrote in her summary, the defendant demonstrated a pattern of manipulation and deceit, with clear intent to cause financial and emotional harm. Dean had spent years gaming the system, taking what he wanted from whoever let him close. But this time, he lost. He didn't even look at me when we passed each other in the hallway. Just kept his head down, red-faced and fuming. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. After the judgment, everything went quiet. Dean disappeared from social media entirely. His tattoo studio's Google listing was flooded with negative reviews. The financial investigation, though still ongoing, was enough to scare away potential clients. And Lisa? She went radio silent. No more rants. No more cryptic emails. Just silence. I'd expected some grand final tantrum, maybe a tearful attempt to rebuild. But I think she finally understood she'd overplayed her hand. Or maybe, deep down, she knew she'd lost me for good, and more importantly, lost our daughter's trust. Lisa was allowed one supervised visit with Chloe every 2 weeks. She missed the first 2. No calls, no messages. Chloe stopped asking why. She just stopped asking altogether. I tried to fill the gaps. I took more time off work, enrolled Chloe in dance classes, cooked dinner every night. Our routines became sacred, mundane, maybe, but peaceful. And peace, after what we'd been through, was sacred. Then, one evening, about a month after the judgment, Lisa finally reached out. Not with anger. Not with drama. Just a message. I'm sorry. I messed up. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time. I didn't know if she meant it, or if this was some new manipulation tactic. Maybe her lawyer told her to apologize. Maybe Dean had dumped her and she was spiraling. It didn't really matter. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her. But because I didn't owe her a single second more of my energy. She'd already taken years from me, years I could have spent wiser, stronger, happier. Instead, I wrote a letter. Not to send, just to write. A purge. In it, I laid everything out, the pain, the betrayal, the way she weaponized trust and twisted it into control. I told her I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. And then I burned the letter in the fire pit out back, under the stars, with Chloe fast asleep inside. That was the moment I let it all go. The revenge. The anger. The heartbreak. It was over. But the lessons. Those stayed with me. The strangest thing about closure is that it doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in quietly, settles in the corners of your day-to-day life, and replaces the chaos with calm. That's what those next few months felt like, rediscovering normal. Without Lisa's storm hovering over us, Chloe began to bloom. Her smile came easier. She laughed louder. Her drawings stopped having frowny faces or "mommy" on her phone scrawled in the margins. We weren't perfect, but we were present. And that mattered more than I'd realized. I got into therapy. I didn't want to become the bitter guy who spent the next decade dissecting a broken marriage over drinks. I wanted to understand how I got there, how I let someone like Lisa blind me for so long. My therapist helped me see something I hadn't wanted to admit. I wasn't just hurt, I was conditioned. Lisa had slowly eroded my confidence, my gut instincts, my voice. Every gaslight, every deflection, every time she told me I was being dramatic, it chipped away at me. That's what abusers do. And yes, I finally said it, Lisa had been emotionally abusive. But I was done being her victim. In therapy, I worked through the guilt. The shame. The anger at myself for not catching it sooner. And the deeper fear that maybe Chloe would somehow be affected by it long term. But I was also learning how to parent better, more intentionally. With empathy. With strength. With healthy boundaries. Meanwhile, word about Dean spread. Turns out, mine wasn't the only lawsuit brewing. At least 2 more women had come forward. One was already preparing a claim for fraud and emotional damages, and another filed a restraining order after he allegedly threatened her when she tried to cut ties. I wasn't surprised. Predators like Dean don't change. They just move on to new prey, until enough people say enough. Lisa, from what I heard, moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. Dean was no longer living with her. Whether he left or she kicked him out, I didn't care. It wasn't my circus anymore. She still had her supervised visits with Chloe, though they were mechanical at best. Lisa would bring gifts, smile too hard, and try to act like the perfect mom in a 45-minute window. Chloe mostly sat quietly. When I asked how it went, she'd just shrug. One time, she said, "She smells like Dean's cigarettes." I don't like it. I reported it. The court issued a warning. One more infraction, and her visits could be revoked completely. I wasn't going to erase Lisa from Chloe's life. I just wanted her to earn her place in it. So far, she hadn't. But we weren't waiting on her anymore. Life was moving forward. And for the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Life has a way of surprising you, not always in the grand, dramatic ways like lawsuits and betrayals, but in the small, quiet turns you don't expect. Chloe and I kept building our little world, one day at a time. Morning pancakes on Saturdays. Lego battles on rainy afternoons. Sunday walks at the park where she'd run ahead, then wait for me to catch up, pretending she wasn't watching the whole time. I was no longer surviving. I was living. And so was she. Then something I hadn't prepared for happened. Lisa gave up. One morning, I got a call from her attorney. I half expected another threat or some drawn-out plea for sympathy. Instead, it was this. She's voluntarily terminating her parental rights. I was stunned. Wait, what? She says she's not in a place emotionally or financially to be the parent Chloe deserves. She's requesting to close visitation entirely. No further contact. I didn't respond right away. The line hung heavy. She asked me to tell you, the attorney continued, that this isn't an act of surrender. It's the first honest thing she's done in years. I didn't know what to feel. Relief? Rage? Sadness? I sat with it for a while. I walked to Chloe's room, watched her sleep. Thought about the night she'd cried for her mom. The confused looks. The hope. The hurt. And now, that chapter was ending, abruptly, without ceremony. That weekend, I told Chloe the truth in the gentlest way I could. She's not going to be visiting for a while, I said. Is she okay? She asked. She's trying to figure out how to be okay. But for now, it's just us. She nodded. Okay. Just us is good. Just us. I didn't know if Lisa's choice came from guilt, shame, or simply exhaustion. But I didn't care anymore. What mattered now was Chloe's healing. Her stability. Her joy. A month later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From Lisa. I don't expect forgiveness. I've ruined things beyond repair. But I need you to know, deep down, I did love her. I just didn't know how to love myself. And I failed you both because of it. Take care of her. Better than I ever did. And better than I ever could. There was no return address. I never heard from her again. And maybe that was for the best. It's strange how something can consume your every waking thought for so long, then one day, it just doesn't. There was a time when Lisa's voice lived in my head like a permanent echo, second-guessing my every move, twisting my self-worth. I'd lie awake replaying every fight, every red flag, wondering what I could have done differently. If I could have fixed her. Saved us. But now? She was a chapter. A long, painful, necessary chapter. And I had finally turned the page. The legal battles were over. The financial mess. Settled. My credit had taken a hit, sure, but I'd recovered faster than expected. The civil judgment against Dean still stood, and while he hadn't paid a cent, it haunted his credit and shut down his little empire of lies. Last I heard, he was couch-hopping, working out of a borrowed shop in another county. He'd been reduced to nothing but whispers and reputation rot. Fitting. As for Chloe, she was thriving. She started asking questions, some small, some hard. Why doesn't mommy call? Why was that man always around? Were you sad when mommy left? I answered each one with honesty. Age appropriate, sure, but real. I never blamed Lisa, never poisoned Chloe's view. I let the facts speak. Kids aren't dumb. They feel what's true even if they don't know how to say it. She once said to me, "You don't smile with your mouth, you smile with your whole face now." That stuck with me. One night, after putting her to bed, I sat on the back porch with a glass of bourbon and just breathed. No phones. No court deadlines. No threats looming in my inbox. Just the wind. The crickets. The sound of my own pulse, calm for once. And that's when I knew, I had let go. Not in the "I'm over it" way people fake on social media. I mean truly let go. Of the resentment. The what ifs. The bitterness. Even the fantasy of some perfect justice. Lisa was gone. Dean was irrelevant. The storm had passed. And I was still standing. Stronger. Wiser. Scarred, sure, but not broken. If anything, I was finally whole. Not because they lost. But because I chose to win on my terms. So here I am, full circle. Writing this not as a man in pain, or rage, or survival mode, but as someone who made it through. If you've read this far, maybe you're going through your own storm. Maybe you just found the messages. Maybe you're watching your partner slowly become someone you no longer recognize, and you're terrified to admit what that means. Maybe you've already been betrayed, blindsided, broken. I get it. And here's what I want you to know. You are not weak for staying. But you are strong for choosing to leave. I stayed too long because I believed in us. In her. In the vows. I thought that if I just worked harder, gave more, forgave quicker, I could keep the ship afloat. But sometimes the ship is sinking because someone else is drilling holes under the deck, and blaming you for the flood. So if you're seeing the signs, don't ignore them. Trust your gut. Protect your peace. Gather evidence. Stay calm. Document everything. People like Lisa and Dean count on chaos. They weaponize confusion. The moment you stop reacting emotionally and start moving strategically, that's when the tide turns. Get a good lawyer. And a better therapist. The legal system is messy, slow, and often frustrating. But if you arm yourself with facts, patience, and the right team, you can come out the other side with your sanity and your dignity intact. Therapy helped me untangle years of manipulation I didn't even realize I'd been under. It taught me to set boundaries, not just with others, but with myself. Focus on your kids, if you have them. They see more than you think. They feel every cold shoulder, every slammed door, every lie told through gritted teeth. I promised myself Chloe would never have to wonder which version of me she'd get. She got the real one, present, calm, consistent. And in return, she gave me more healing than I thought possible. And finally, you don't have to seek revenge. You just have to choose not to be destroyed. Let karma do its work. Let the courts handle the rest. You focus on rebuilding. On breathing. On laughing again. Because one day, you'll wake up and realize you're not the man who was betrayed. You're the man who survived it. And you're just getting started.